Hello all, welcome back to my channel. In this video we will discuss how many ways we can create and use a HTTP client object in ASP.NET Core Web APIs. For that first let me create one sample project and we'll discuss in the real time. Let's open Visual Studio, create a new project, select the ASP.NET Core Web API template, click on next. I'm going to name it as .NET Core endpoints. Click on add, click on create. This will create a one sample project for you. In the controller you can see the default controller weather forecast controller is created by defaultly. So I'm going to add one more controller. Just right click and add, select the API. I'm going to name it test HTTP object, HTTP client object. Click on create. So now the controller is created. In this controller I am going to write a logic, or I am going to write a few endpoints. The endpoints will communicate with the third party endpoints and get the data and return it. For that I am going to use a third party endpoints which is available in Google. So this is openly available, so you can from Google you can check it out. Let me check first how the data is coming here. Let's open Postman, give this endpoint and click on send. The first JSON placeholder endpoint, it is gives the array type of response, and the properties are user ID, title and body. There is some random data it is given. So I'm going to use this endpoint. So first we'll write a one endpoint to get the data from third party. So I'm going to use the HTTP method, HTTP get. This will return a result, public async task. The return type I will use IActionResult and get result async. I'll give as version 1 also. Here I'm going to create a first HTTP client object, and for that HTTP client dot base address. The base address is that URL. So base address equal to new URI of, here I am going to give the URI. This is the public endpoint. So now I am going to make a call where response equal to, this is async method, so I am going to use a await HTTP client dot get async of that endpoint, full endpoint, the method name, that is a post /post. I have to use here the semicolon. Now this response, if it is have a success code, then I will read a content, I will return, otherwise I will return as a bad request. If response dot is success code, if the success code is success, then I will read a content and I will return the content, return off. If it is success is not success code is 200, then I will return as a bad request. So let me execute this. I'm going to give a routing. Just click on a F5. This will open a Swagger UI. So in the Swagger UI you can see the endpoint get result async v1 version 1. Let me try to hit, click on execute. So this will give us the data which we seen in the Postman. So this is one way of creating a HTTP client object. Let me create another type. I'm going to use the same, just copy to this, copy the same endpoint and I'll name it as version 2, v2 I'll give. So here I am not going to use this type of HTTP. So for that I am going to use in the program.cs dependency injection, I'm going to use builder.services.add HTTP client. So now I am going to use this HTTP. Here I am going to use the HttpClientFactory. By using this IHttpClientFactory, I am going to create a HTTP client. This is the where clientFactory.create a client. So this is the same. Let me execute this. Click on continue. Now you can see two endpoints. One is the first HTTP client, and this is the second type of creating an object by using a dependency injection. Just click on version 2, click on execute. So this also is give us the data with how we got from version 1. So this is the second type of creating object. Here you are assigning a base address to HTTP client. This is not a mandatory to give, so you can, like this also you can give, under here also you can use like this. So let me comment and you can execute. Let me see. Click on execute. You can see still you will get data. This one. And the third type is named. So when you are giving, I'll copy the same version 2. I'll give version 3. I'll change it to version 3. So when you are creating when you are adding a HTTP client in the program.cs, I'm going to give a name as well. So this is a placeholder API. I'm going to give a JSON placeholder, and here I am going to add x.base address. X.base address equal to new URI of. Here I have to give a URI. That URL, the endpoint URL I am going to give. Now this is the named HTTP client object creation. So this one I am going to use in our endpoint. So this is the third endpoint. Here what I am going to give that name. Whichever I gave here, the JSON placeholder, the name should be the same here. Otherwise the object will not create. So already I given a base address in this here. So I no need of giving a base address once again. So just this is more enough. Let me execute this. The version 3 is a named type of HTTP client object. The version 3, click on try it out, click on execute. So you can see still the data is coming. This is a named type. Whereas I have one more scenario, like I have multiple endpoints, which is how can I use this named type. We can make it a copy of it. Just copy, and I have another API. This will give a list of data, I believe. Let me postman. Click on send. Okay, this will give a list of mobile phone data. So let me use this endpoint. This endpoint I am going to give in here. This name also I will change it. The name should be unique. So this I will name it as a mobile data. So whenever I create an object for a HTTP, I have to use a name. So I'm going to copy this again. This I will make it as a version 3. This I will give get result async mobile version 3. Here I have to use this name mobile data, and the endpoint ends with objects. I'm going to give like this. So let me execute this. You can see this is a version 3 and this is an JSON placeholder, this is a mobile data object. Let me execute. You can see it is a created object and it is given data for JSON placeholder HTTP client object. Now let me create with a mobile. Just to try it out. Click on execute. So this will make a mobile data HTTP client object. It will create object and it will make a call on get. Now we can see here the data is coming as a text format. Let me make it as a object type. Just copy one of the response. You can see here it is read as a string and return it. So let me deserialize and return. So this is a return type of data. Just copy it. I'm going to add one class. Right click, add class. This is a response DTO. I'll name it. And here you can use our Visual Studio feature instead of creating a properties each one of them, because like if you see here ID, name, data, color, capacity, all those these are the properties. If you want to create a return type object, you have to create each one of them properties. Instead of that, I can copy this. Just copy this one object and go to your Visual Studio. In the edit, you can see the paste special. So we have a paste JSON as a classes, XML as a classes. I'm going to use a paste JSON as a classes. This will, once you selected, the automatically whatever you copied, ID, name, data, color, capacity, it is copied. So suppose if you have a return type is a different format, if you see here is the different format, ID, name and data. Just copy this, go to here. I'll remove it for now. Just edit and we can use this. It is created. So like this we can use our Visual Studio feature. Now I'll copy this, edit, paste special, this one. So here the root object I'm going to give as this one. Let me remove it off. And now this response DTO, I'll use it here. So instead of reading a string as a async, I'll use read from JSON async. Here I am going to give the response DTO. Since this is returning as a list of data, so I am going to use a list of response data. So let me execute this. The version 3, mobile version 3 endpoint is written. The same data, it is in formatted, which we deserialize and return. So here one more thing, like if you want to use no need of doing this kind of, just copy this read from JSON async. You can use here also the HTTP client. Instead of read, you can use get. So these lines will remove it off. So let me copy for another one for understand. I'm going to copy this mobile version 3. I'm going to use version 2. This I'll make it version 1 for understanding. So here I'm going to use get from JSON, get from JSON async, and here the deserialize, and it will return the response DTO. This is the list type. I am giving as list type. So these two lines we can remove it off. Okay. The return OK of response. I can see. Just go and execute. The last one, mobile version 2 data. I can see the same result you will get. I can say same result you will get. It's just a way of calling the methods from a HTTP client object. The return type is here. It is deserialized and it will return directly, but here it is written as a HTTP client of HTTP response type. It will return from there. It will deserialize and return it. Here you can see it is already deserialized and it will return. So now we have seen the first and second, third, three types of creating a HTTP client object. Now fourth one, how we can create a, just go to program.cs. In the similar way, we are giving as a named, which is some default name we given hard coded value. So now let's create one more class. Just right click, add. I'm going to name it as a mobile services. Click on add. In this mobile services, I'm going to use a HTTP client object. So in this method, I'm going to write to that method async task list of response DTO. Get response async I'll use. Here return await HTTP client dot get JSON from, you can copy from there. Let me copy whatever you've written here, you can copy this one. Just I'll copy, I'll paste dot. Okay, so it is showing some warning, this may return a null values, so I'll make it as a optional by putting. Okay, so now I have written in mobile services class, I have written one method. This method will make a call to third party and get the response. So how we can create a HTTP client object against to the class by using a dependency injection. So this I'll copy the same, and I am not going to use this default value. This X, and here I am going to use a mobile services. So this will create an object against to this class. So let me create one more controller. Right click, add controller API, click on add, and I'm going to name it as mobile controller. Click on add. Here I'm going to create a object for mobile services. Mobile services. Now we'll make a call to mobile service method. Public async task. Here I will give list of response DTO. Response DTO and get response sync. Return. This is async, so I am going to use await, and mobile services dot get response async. So this is again here I'm going to use optional. I'll add this on routing and execute. Click on F5. Now you can see it is okay. So I didn't use this HTTP verbs, so that's why the Swagger is failed to load. So let me close this. I'm going to use HTTP get. Click on F5. Now we can see in the mobile controller we have one method get responses. Just click on try it out. Click on execute. So the data is coming from the mobile services. Let me put breakpoint and let's see here, and let me put breakpoint here also. Try to hit once again. So it's the control breakpoint came here, and this will go to mobile services. Here the object is created for mobile services. The mobile services already we injected in here in the program.cs. Just click on continue. So now we got a data. This many ways we can use a HTTP client object. We can create and we can use in our web API projects. If you like this video, please share and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.